Absolutely shattered. Oh, just had a long walk back from the crumbles. Uh, I'm really glad that yesterday I made some very good points about um, talking about my late grandmother, my adoptive grandmother's cousin, whatever, distant cousin Anne Boleyn, because you know I thought that was quite funny actually. I say funny about um I was talking about something that's actually traumatic and funny. Uh, the haunted house at Thorpe Park. I mean, I mean, it's just I've never really thought about that before. And I've mentioned it in a YouTube video, and it never occurred to me that my adoptive grandmother's distant relative ancestor was the subject of one of the exhibits in the haunted house. you know, but it never occurred to me before because it doesn't. I was about 5 or 6 the first time I went to Thorpe Park in the late 80s. And this was before I knew that Grandma was related to Anne Boleyn. Because I didn't, as I said, I didn't take an interest in Anne Boleyn till I was 11, 12 years old. And then my mother told me Grandma's middle name, Annie, was because of Anne Boleyn, and my middle name is Anna, and that her grandfather had put in the family tree related to the Bullen family, B-U-double-N, B-U-double-L-E-N, because there are two different ways of spelling it. Boleyn, which is the way everybody spells it, and Bulen. So yeah, that's a little secret that I'm sure probably not many historians know that. But it's funny that in my YouTube video I brought up something that I often come out with these funny little things when talking to people, when I talk to Darren or you know, but it never occurred to me that my grandmother's ancestor was on the haunted house at Thorpe Park in Surrey. And my mother was born in Surrey. She had a privileged upbringing during the war. She went to an all girls school, JAGS, James Allen Girls' School, in southeast London. Yeah. Surrey is known as the oh yes, the money area. It's one of those counties that's I was born in Buckinghamshire, that's quite affluent, but Surrey is phew, yeah, that's one of the top counties. Darren was born in Surrey, and he's got no noble blood. He's got blue blood because he was distantly related to, on his mother's side, his mother, Darren's mother. There's Freemasonry. His mother's. He said his mother's father was a Freemason, and I won't divulge something traumatic about that, but yeah, his mother was related to the last earl to be hanged with gold thread. How about that? Because he shot dead one of his servants with one of those adamant pistols. Yeah, one of those Dick Dick Turpin, what do you call it? Pistols. By the way, the Broccoli Highwayman, right? There's a pub in Brockley, southeast London, not too far from where my grandmother lived in Forest Hill. In southeast London, there is a pub called the Broccoli Highwayman. And my boyfriend at the time said to me, told me about this. He said there's an adamant. There's a pub that's got a picture because of course I was going to all the adamant conventions and everything, and I went there and I took my camera, I took a photograph of it. Not even the ant people, yeah, knew about it. I wondered if Adamant knew about it because the Broccoli Highwayman, there's a there's a pub that's got a picture, a painting on the outside. You know how English pubs have all got paintings on the outside, like like for example the cock and well, it's not going to have a something rude. I'm talking about um like the king's head or something. It'll have a picture of a king's head, like Henry VIII or something, where it's got a picture of the Broccoli Highwayman, but it's not the Broccoli Highwayman. It's a highwayman that's got a white stripe across his nose and an adamant scowl. And I went into the Broccoli Highwayman pub and I said, is that adamant? And the people that own the pub were like, oh no, it's there really was a highwayman called the Broccoli Highwayman. And I said, but highwaymen didn't go round with a Native American white stripe across their nose. It's adamant. I said, adamant sometimes visits his punk friend who works across the road from our house in Seaford, and I'm a huge, I don't like the word fan, neither does Adam, but they were insisting that no, it's the Broccoli Highwayman. It's not. I don't even think they knew who Adamant was because they were quite young people in there. They were about my age. They were in their 20s. So this was about 20 years ago. So yeah, but anyway, so I thought I might throw that one into the mix. Um, so getting back to, I thought it was quite funny. I say funny. You know what I was talking about, MK Ultra and trauma based. This there are there's always, call a spade a spade. There's always some kind of trauma based disassociation and mind control. Because let's face it, slasher movies is part of the MK Ultra thing, and Dr. William Schnobelem said this. Because he said that the whole slasher movie thing that all came out in the 80s. All the world has become, there's nothing new under the sun, but it's the methods have changed. Yeah, the spirit has always been there, but the methods have changed. And so, like, because it's been normalized, this going on haunted houses and scaring ourselves. I just had a morbid curiosity as a child. I'd be like, what's it like? Well, why don't you go on the ghost train? No, I don't want to. I'm not going to go on there. But what's it like? And I feel ashamed because um I listen to a lot of morbid things. I know it's a natural human thing, but I'll feel ashamed of it because I take a morbid curiosity in survivors of satanic ritual abuse. It's that like when all those children, I never watched Doctor Who, but I my sisters used to do that thing where they'd hide behind the sofa and do that and sort of peek. Well, I did that when the Lost Boys, that horror movie. Bronya said it's not a horror film. Well, it is. It's got blood in it. It's supposed to be funny as well, with Kiefer Sutherland and Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. And I was like, I'd actually hang on to the door of the front room because I'd have to get out of the front room, because if I put my hands over my face, I can still hear what's going on. And I'd be like, I'd get ready to run out of the room. If there was a horror film on, I'd be like, you know, because, you know, and my mother would say, don't watch these things. Think of something nice then. Think of My Little Pony before going to bed. I shouldn't be. I know you're probably thinking, why didn't you? How come your mother let you watch this stuff? Well, she didn't. I just sometimes what saw things I shouldn't have seen. But anyway, I just thought it was quite funny, that thing that I said in my last video at the end about I just thought it was kind of ironic, the fear of lifts and then going on the haunted house at Disney World. Pardon me. When my mother had just made me go up 80 floors up the Empire State Building, and then she's taking me to Disney World, where there's a voice saying there's no way out of this lift. Because I was claustrophobic. I couldn't go to the toilet on my own. I had to get my friend to come into the toilets with me. Um, I mean, I even remember when my father used to come down and we went to Brighton seafront. I'd say, Daddy, can you take me to the toilet? I can't go to the toilet with you. It's the ladies' toilets. The irony that this thing about men going into women's toilets. And I was begging my father to come into the ladies' toilets with me. I can't look. And there was this very traumatic incident. It's ironic that I was about to say something, and I don't want to get arrested for saying it, so I can't say it. But my middle sister is now living as my transgender sister is now living as my brother. They've already arrested me for that. I don't want them to arrest me. I was about to say something and I better not say it because I don't want the police handcuffing me for saying it. So I better not say it. You see, they want me to be afraid. But I just think it's ironic because Bronya went into the ladies' toilets with me and I had a fear of locking the toilet door. This is on Brighton seafront. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a seaside town. This is an English seaside town. There's another English seaside town just up the road from here, and it's called Brighton, where they celebrate all this. Anyway, and I remember, so as a child, when I was about 6 or 7, I was like, Daddy, I want you to come and take me to the toilet because I can't lock the door. He said, I can't go into the toilets because it's the ladies. Now, I can't physically remember his face or him talking or anything, but Bronya came into the toilets, but I really needed my mother because my mother would come into the toilet cubicle with me because I felt I had a fear of being locked inside the toilet cubicle and not being able to get out. So in the same way, I had a fear of lifts. So anyway, I just thought Bronya, I didn't help because I vaguely remember coming out crying, saying, "Oh, and he didn't understand, and because I panicked, I locked the door, and I used to do this thing as a child where I would panic, and the panic caused me to not be able to open the door. Do you see what I mean? And this is all trauma and anxiety. And I believe this has been perpetuated, and my sisters will hate me for saying it, but this is exactly what this is all about. Abuse, narcissistic abuse, trauma, bullying, violence. It's all been swept under the carpet, all that generational stuff. And this is how you create a child with issues. Um, I was getting to a point where I was 10 years old, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is getting out of hand. I'm too old for this. I was getting my best friend to come into the toilet with me, into the toilet cubicle, and I thought this is ridiculous. I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm 10 years old. I'm starting to become a, you know, girls develop quicker than boys. I do remember leaning over and looking into one of the toilet cubicles and seeing two girls doing what me and my best friend did at one time, which was uh, I don't want to say like homosexual, because girls do this thing where they pretend to um, kiss and cuddle each other and explore each other without actually doing anything. If that makes any sense. Me and my best friend used to pretend to be a couple, and we didn't take our clothes off or anything like that. We didn't do anything really disgusting, but we pretended to be, um, let's just say, a married couple doing what married couples do in bed with our pajamas on when we were children. And we thought what we were doing was so terrible that if our parents, we used to look at the smoke alarm and say, oh my gosh, is that a camera? What if they find out we've done something terrible? But we were very savvy children. We tried on a sanitary pad. We wanted to know what it felt like. What does it feel like? Well, we were still children. Oh, it feels like a nappy. Oh, it's weird. And then Chloe taking those pornographic magazines into school, and oh, I've just gone off on another rant. I was gonna do this thing where I was gonna say we used to do this thing where we go, watch out, Cronin's about. Da, da, da. Do you remember Beatles about? Cronin, nobody knows who I'm talking about. If I say Cronin, you're not going to know who I'm talking about. All the children at Annecy will know, because they're the ones that came up with this tune. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Watch out, Cronin's about. Yeah, I'll tell you who Cronin is. Cronin, for anyone, all the YouTubers out there who don't know, that's our dodgy primary school headmaster who my mother shouted against his appraisal in church, because she was the only one who had the guts to do it. The PTA wanted to get rid of him, the nuns, the governors. It was a Catholic school. Yeah, he was not good. Das ist not das ist nicht gut. Uh, and yeah, and I remember the Irish lady coming up to me, the Irish on duty lady. You know, the playground duty ladies. Your mother should get a medal for what she's done. She's wonderful. Yes, I know. Even though I wanted the ground to swallow me up, I was so proud of her. I thought she's handed me the baton. So, anyway, tangent after tangent. I wanted to start this YouTube video really by saying, I've forgotten the words I was going to use. Um, be scared. Be very scared. It's Bryony McCarthy. Well, I can't remember the exact words I was going to use. Um, if I was a man, I'd say lock up your daughters. No, but anyway, no, it's just ironic, because people are afraid of me because, she's speaking the truth. Um, yeah, no, because of course we all know what it means. I'll do it in my next YouTube video. I'll start it in a very sort of yeah. It's just amazing though, isn't it? People have got so much to hide. They did all this evil to me, and they just couldn't stop themselves. And that Monique Prescott, you think maybe people are afraid of what you're saying. So I've come back from the Crumbles, Eastbourne. The Crumbles, where that's the cinema where the old cinema at the Crumbles. I can't believe they've got rid of these cinemas. They've got rid of the one in town where I saw Toy Story and lots of other Disney films in the 80s and 90s. And they got rid of the Crumbles cinema. That's where I've just walked from. This is why I'm absolutely shattered. And the Crumbles cinema is where I saw what's it called? What's it called? Jurassic Park when I was 11. And my mother, did a scene with Sam Neill in Wimbledon. Oh yes, my mother was a star, don't you know? Yeah, blink and you'll miss it. My mother had had a knee operation, so they were, but being a film crew, they were like, "Come on, come on." you know, you, this is the lady we want for the scene. And mum, they got her on an aeroplane. It was filmed at was it a small airport? I can't remember. This is in 2004. The film was released. Wimbledon was released in 2005, so it would have been made in 2004. And mum came back and she told us about the scene she did with Sam Neill. I said, what happened? And she was like, oh, they wanted me to wear a certain jacket. She was wearing the kind of colours that I wear, beige and cream. I like my beige and cream colours. And then she said they I think was it a navy jacket they gave her or something. It was a different coloured jacket. They were funny with her because they said, I think about an hour or two later, or was it the next day? Because I think they might have done it in two parts. They said, we where's the jacket that you were wearing? They said, well, you've oh, never mind, we're giving you this one to wear. um and it was all very if you've ever been an extra. I've never been an extra, but I was going out with someone who was often on TV. I got excited seeing him in a scene with Heather on the set of. He told me he'd been in the other Berlin girl, by the way. Yeah, he was actually in the movie, the other Berlin girl. And he said to me, Bryony, why don't you get joined up with Mad Dog? I was like, I was going through a very difficult, it's taken me years to have a mental breakdown. And he was like, Bryony, this is the other Berlin girl. You could get a part in the movie. And I said, oh, really? I said, yeah, but I don't want to be just some Tudor woman. I wrote to Jimmy Savile because I want to dress as Anne Boleyn. I want to be the main character. I want to be my grandmother's ancestor, Anne Boleyn. I don't want to be just some Tudor lady. And I said, so what was it like? Did you get to wear a codpiece? Oh yeah, he was in. He, I'd be across the road in that hellhole at supported accommodation, and he was absolutely over the moon when he got a part in. He was on. He was in. What do you call it? Doctor Who, and I was like, oh, there's Chris. He's by the fireplace. He's around a fireplace, and then but I was more excited to see him doing a scene in EastEnders, because it's like, of all the movies and things he's done things in, I was more excited the fact that he went to the EastEnders set, which is in Elstree. It's not in East London. It's in Elstree. And I was like, oh, oh, you saw Ian Beale's chip shop, and oh, you saw this and you saw that. I said, I would love to go on the EastEnders set, because EastEnders is something we've all grown up with in the UK. It's like Grange Hill. And of course, most of the cast from EastEnders came from Grange Hill in the 80s. Um, so I was more excited. I just went on about EastEnders, and I said, and he deliberately looked at the camera because he knew that I was watching. He said, I'm in an episode of EastEnders tonight. I'm in a waiting room with a magazine, and I look up at the camera. I've tried to find it on YouTube. I've tried to find, um, I think my sister. I went on Top of the Pops with my sister, but yeah, and I am still calling her she. She was wearing she was when for my 20th birthday we went on Top of the Pops when Jerry Halliwell was on there and doing Raining Men, and Bronya's in the background, and we were the first people in the Top of the Pops studio, and hello mum, um yeah, I'm talking about nice things now. But Chris told me, this is the person that I was going out with at the time. He told me he'd go and do a whole day of filming with extras, and he'd say to me, I've just done. I'd be like, why have you got a scar that? Why have they shaved your head? What have they done to you? They'd shaved all his head and put a scar here, a fake scar. He said they wanted me to be a mentally ill patient. They wanted me to be a mental patient that's had some kind of a lobotomy. And I read his diary. I shouldn't have. He said they never get me to play the good looking parts. They always get me to play a mentally ill, deranged. But just because I'm thin, I shouldn't have read that. I shouldn't. I know that's a terrible thing to say. Well, but then I found out he was chatting up a girl who was pregnant on the Pipex ad with David Hasselhoff. he was he was in the Pipex ad with David Hasselhoff, and I read his diary. He chatted up a girl who was on roller boots, and that inflamed jealousy. But there you go. I won't go there. And David Hasselhoff was wearing a T-shirt that said "Don't hassle the Hoff." I like that. Anyway, but anyway, this movie where he played a mental patient, he usually the stars of the movies don't talk to the extras, but he said that it was a movie with what's the name of that young man? He's the same age as me. What's his name? Elijah Wood. Elijah Woods. He's the same age as me. He was born in 1982. The American actor. Yeah, he came up to him and said, "Oh, cool scar." I said, "Oh, he came up to you, did he?" I said, "They don't often go up to the extras." And of course, I was watching extras at the time, but Mum's, Mum's scene with Sam Neill was really quite something because it was just her and him, and this is in Wimbledon, and they had said to her, "We would like you to give Sam Neill a disapproving look, as if to say that's not how you behave in business class." And Mum told me and my sisters this, and we all said, she said to the production crew, she said, "My daughters will know exactly what that look is." And we were like, yes, because we all know what it's like for my mother to. So she had to sort of give Sam Neill a sort of disapproving look because this is what I said. They could just tell my mother was very middle class, you know. This is what I've been saying. I'm a lady, you know. Adamant's girlfriend even told, I'm a lady. He's told his African American friend to behave himself because I'm a lady. He didn't. He was very inappropriate with me, but because he was Adamant's friend, anyway, he shouldn't have picked me up, especially when I was barely wearing anything, dressed like a Babylonian whore. But anyway, oh, by the way, Shalom Shabbat Yahuwah. I'm going to be talking about some things I really shouldn't be saying, but yeah, no, Mum said the what they gave her on set was it wasn't wine, it was apple juice. That's what they do, you see. On movie sets, it's not real alcohol, it's apple juice. But she said I never got to drink it anyway because they kept saying cut, and they had the camera rolling up towards them. I said I said that's the stuff I want to see. I want to see the camera rolling. I want to know what it's like to have a camera rolling up to you. The closest I came to that was was when Bronya and I went on Question of Pop. We were in the audience, and the people in front of me were asked to move on, and Westlife, the Irish pop group, sat in front of me, and Brian was like, "I've got some fans in the audience," and the boys, they were leaning against my knees. By the way, this is Westlife. Brian, we love you. I've got it on Facebook. You can actually see me in the background and Bronya. And I was like, the camera's looking at me. I've always, I, 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 I always wanted to have a camera right on me, but I wanted to have I wanted to have that Jim will fix it badge, but as a child, I wanted the Jim will fix it badge to go around my neck, and for Jim to do that. Yeah. Um, I'd like to know whose house it was that we went into. Mum and we went into someone's house back in the 80s, and they had a Jim will fix it badge in a in a in a frame. Bronya got a letter from Jim will fix it in April 1982, 1 month after I was born. She showed me the letter in her scrapbook. I was like, I didn't know that you got a reply. I was like, Wordy is a squiggle. No, he's not. I remember words and pictures when in the late 80s, not the early 80s. And I was like, Wordy is some weird um thing with that floats around in the air with black arms and letters on his face. He's not an animation. I said, I don't know what you remember from the early 80s, but Wordy was a some sort of a robot thing that was superimposed on a computer screen with arms like that. And Geordie Racer. Do you remember Geordie Racer sung by what's the name of the man that did the voice of Super Ted? Derek Griffiths. I used to fancy Super Ted. There was a shop in High Wycombe, and everything in that. It was the first time I'd ever had a sexual feeling, and I was a toddler. I was no more than 4 years old, and Super Ted made me feel, you know, I fancied Super Ted. Everything in that shop was Super Ted, Super Ted wallpaper, Super Ted, Super Ted, Super Ted, and Derek Griffiths. I mean, just his voice. I get now that I can put a face to the voice of Super Ted. And Derek Griffiths sang the song Geordie Racer as a schools program with Wordy. I'm going off on one. I'm having my moment. And we had a dog. We had a Cairn Terrier called Geordie. I was like, we've got a dog called Geordie. And Derek Griffiths is singing Geordie Racer, Geordie Racer. It's all about it was some weird thing set up in Newcastle in, in 1989. It was a schools program with a boy who's got pigeons, and he's running the North Marathon thing, and it's got what's his name from Alfie the Same Pet. My mum likes Alfie the Same Pet. Yeah, I was when I was looking up people who I share a birthday with. Jimmy Nail, 16th of March. I told you when I have my rants, I just go off on one. If you don't want to listen to it, go and watch something else. I couldn't care less if nobody's listening to me. I'm gonna have I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this for anyone else. I'm not doing this for attention. I couldn't give a monkey's rats whatever. I'm having my rant, and it feels good. So yeah, so I've come back from the Crumble Cinema where I saw Jurassic Park. I started this rant because I started by saying Mum did a scene with Sam Neill in Wimbledon. What was Sam Neill like? She described him as being aloof, but then they're all like that in Hollywood. Hollywood was never for me, but I did have a fantasy when I was a child. I said back in the 80s, I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a Hollywood actress, and I imagined myself with Dallas style shoulder pads and big hair. Some people have called me Dolly Parton in the past because I used to have big hair. The bigger your hair, the higher you are to God. That's what Dolly Parton said. But as a little girl, I said that when I grew up, I was going to be a Hollywood actress, and a lot of people said, I mean, even Ray Savage, but Ray Savage, who exposed the Freemasons, who dated Patsy, the mother of children I played with. Because I'm going to start another tangent in about half an hour. I'm going to talk about Little House on the Prairie because we were like the children from Little House on the Prairie, me, Kate, and Rebecca. Patsy dated Ray Savage. Ray Savage was at the Truthers Conference. It's a very small world. He dated Patsy. He met the mother, Ella Draper. I actually saw a video of him on YouTube the other day where I've seen the clip before where he's being interviewed, and he interviewed Ella Draper. He was a detective. He's exposed the Freemasons, and this is Ella Draper, and they show a clip of Ricky Dearman. I've got to be very careful what I say because there are some very dangerous people out there. Because Ray Savage said that the 77 Brigade are targeting me and him, so I've got to be careful. But even he said to me I should have been an actress. He said, I hope you don't take that the wrong way, and I'm just hoping he doesn't think that I am. I hope he didn't think that I'm a fantasist or something, or lying like these weird people that I've attracted. You couldn't make this stuff up. But no, at being an actress, I mean, I had a chance to do modeling. I even had a chance to do adult modeling. There was where the wine bar is in Chelsea, in Eastbourne, Little Chelsea. There was a modeling agency, and they offered me a job at 23. Now, 23 in the modeling industry, you're considered an old lady at 23. They want to get you as a child, right? It's like Irish dancing. And I was offered a job in London, and they were like, the guy couldn't understand why I was turning it down. Do you know why I was turning it down? Because I was chasing after Adamant. I said, I can't. And I didn't say why, but it was the time of the Adamant convention. And my boyfriend at the time, who was doing all this extras work, was very cross because he said to me, what is wrong with you? You can't base your whole life on Adamant. He took me to some modeling agencies in London, and it was so embarrassing because he wanted me to lie about my age, and I said, look, I can't. I said, even pretending that I'm a few years younger, 20, that's still too old. Oh, we want the executive look, we want this and that. Oh, I said, look, I told you I'm too old. But I turned down a modelling job that was offered to me in Eastbourne when I was, no, I wasn't. Oh, hang on a minute. No, I wasn't 23. No, I was older than that. No, think I was about 25 or 26. So I was even older. Uh, yes, it was very unusual to be offered. Uh, yeah, I think they were offering me, was it £200 or £300 for for a few hours? It was a few hundred quid. It was a few hundred quid for a few hours. But
that for having your photos taken, I think, but my like I said, when I was 8 years old, I had a modelling scout come up to my mother at the Natural History Museum in London, apparently, and say, "Your daughter should be a child model. Here's our number." So it was my mother that tried to get me into the child modelling thing, but I was never interested. I wanted to be a Hollywood actress. I had this fantasy. Everything that's been in my mind has been like, what I said about astrology, right? People born on this day, 16th of March, tend to lose touch with reality. I had a key ring, and when I was heavily into astrology, I bought it at the garden centre where I worked with the Freemason, and yeah, everyone said he was a dirty old man, but yeah, not telling my mother he wanted to impregnate me, but there were some key rings. Um, the day I was born, key ring, and people born on this day, my day, tend to lose touch with reality, display a good sense of humour, that is very me, and have a flair for the ingenious, that is very me. But this thing about losing touch with reality is very true, and it applies to Abiyahu. Please forgive me for talking about astrology. It does apply to everything that like even Disney World. When they said on the monorail at Disney World, Minnie Mouse would say, "My mother loved seeing the look on my face because I get so excited. Are you coming to Mickey's birthday party?" And I get, "Mummy," I actually believed that there would be a real birthday party for Mickey Mouse. I actually believed. I was so disappointed because I was like, where's the birthday cake? You know, in my world, Mickey Mouse has got to have everything. There's got to be birthday cake. I've come all this way. I've come thousands of miles to Disney World for Mickey Mouse's birthday party. Where's the birthday cake? It was just a show. Yeah. Come on, this is Disney. Come on. Walt Disney wants to do everything. He's a 33rd degree Freemason. Well, of course, I know that now. I didn't know that in 1989 when I was 7. I didn't know that when I was 10 years old when I got the Disney Club badge. I used to watch um, our UK version of the Disney Club. I got a Disney Club badge. I sent something in and they sent me a Disney Club badge with the Mickey Mouse. Oh yes, yeah. No, I was um talking of birthdays and astrology and all that because my mum was like, Bryony's the one to go to for astrology. Mum shares a birthday with Britney Spears. She was Mickey Mouse Club programmed. But yeah, no, I'm like, if you're gonna if you Americans, if Walt Disney is all about, let's make everything, then I'll tell you what, this girl, she expects everything and more. And I was so disappointed. I went to Mickey Mouse's birthday party and I didn't get any birthday cake. I didn't get any of Mickey Mouse's birthday. And we went to Mickey Mouse's house where his car was outside. I thought this is fairly realistic, but not realistic enough. Now I went to the cinema to see Roger Rabbit. I fancied Roger Rabbit as well. I was so jealous of Jessica Rabbit. I wanted to have massive breasts and, an unrealistic body like hers. If she, anatomically speaking, if Jessica Rabbit existed, like Barbie, she wouldn't be able to stand because she's anatomically impossibly, but apparently a lot of men fancies Jessica Rabbit. And as a child, I would throw my hair over my face and pretend to be Jessica Rabbit because I fancied Roger Rabbit. Well, I met Roger Rabbit at Disney World, and I was it was just like it was just like um it was just like me fancying what's his name? Super Ted and Mickey Mouse. I think they know what they're doing though, Disney, because when I was a little girl, before I went to Disney World, when I was about 5 or 6, I never told my mother this because this is so shameful. But there's a cartoon that was released the year that my mother was born in 1938 or 30, yeah, it was in the 1930s, and it's in colour, and it turned me on as a child. It was so naughty. Um, and this really was released. You can look it up. If you don't believe me, you can go and look it up. And because it was I saw it on a compilation video, I think, as a child, and I got turned on because it was so sexually explicit. But this is a 1930s Mickey Mouse cartoon. I'll explain to you. Now, I fancied Mickey Mouse. I used to get teased by a boy, Daniel Melville. He used to say to me, "Do you remember when you used to say Mickey Mouse was your nose?" I was like, "Yeah, I also said that he was my boyfriend." He'd tease me at secondary school. I used to say some stupid stuff. But seriously, this cartoon is dirty. So this is before we went to Disney World when I was 7. When I was about 5 or 6, this cartoon, it's it's the one where they Mickey and Minnie are going for a picnic, and there's this other mouse called, I think he's called Mortimer Mouse, and Minnie Mouse is impressed by Mortimer, and Mickey is very jealous. And it's there's a bull in a field, and Mortimer is trying to. He actually looks a bit like Walt Disney, in my opinion, because I think he's got a moustache, but he's got mouse ears because he's a mouse, isn't he? But he's trying to impress Minnie. With a he's got a red thing, and he's trying to get the ball to go through the red thing, and then it all goes a bit, typical cartoon. It all goes uh it all turns into chaos as all Disney cartoons do. The bull ends up getting very angry and and ruins the picnic, starts chasing Mickey and Minnie, but he goes after Minnie, and Minnie is trying to climb up this tree. And this is the bit where I get turned on. It's just like, it's funny what turns you on as a child.
I felt so ashamed at the time that I had these feelings, but it's funny to talk about now as an adult. Minnie's gone up this tree, and Mickey's going, "Come back down," and she's going, "No, no." There's a bit where Minnie's arse is on show, and she's showing her knickers, and her dress has gone up, and her knickers are showing. And Mickey has got his hands on her bottom. His hands are on her bottom. And even to me as a child, even now, that is still quite sexually explicit because he's got his hands on her bottom. And I just thought, oh, I'd like Mickey to do that to me. And I was just an innocent child having these rude thoughts. But that's a little bit how I felt about Super Ted a few years earlier because I must have been a toddler, 3, 4 years old, when I had a book with a picture of Super Ted holding a girl in his arms, and I just thought, oh, do you want to know something even more weird? If you think I'm weird, it's not weird because it all makes sense. Oh, I don't know if I should say because it's just so mad. But everything I've been saying about the spirit behind things, I found out, I don't know how, but Mickey Mouse, his birthday, because you know I was talking about astrology, he's a Scorpio. Because you know I was talking about water signs, and I had an obsession with water signs because they are all three water signs are extremely compatible. And they have me off, will forgive me. I'm only saying this for the purposes of not because I want to draw people in, but because I want to explain the spirit behind all of this. Um, and it's better to laugh about it and not to take any of it seriously, although it is serious because it is witchcraft, it is the occult. But um, when I learnt how old, I think Mickey Mouse is about 10 years older than my mother because he was created in the 1920s, and his birthday is sometime in mid-November. That's when he was created. A bit like Garfield being born on I think it was the 20th of June 1978, because I was a Garfield fanatic as well. My mother and my father used to give me Garfield things, and Garfield was a link with my mother and father. But anyway, no, Mickey Mouse, yes, he's a Scorpio. So, born in the third week of Scorpio. So that's a very romantic relationship anyway of itself. And then I also learnt that the voice of Derek Griffiths, the voice of Super Ted, who I also fancied, his birthday is the 16th of July. So again, very compatible. Same day as Michael Flatley. Michael Flatley was my first kiss on the lips when I was 14, thanks to my mother. Michael, please would you kiss my daughters? They'll never wash their faces again. And it wasn't just a kiss, it was slowly cupped my face. I truly thought I was going to marry him. I was 14 and he was 24 years older than me. He was 20 years younger than my mother, and my mother was old enough to be his mother, and he was old enough to be my father, but we both fancied him. So, yeah. But this thing about astrology, though, I mean, it's because I've got access to the internet now, it's easy to look up people's birthdays. And I can't help it. I've rebuked it, but sometimes it is like I'm curious. I think, oh, I'd like to know the name. But before I had access to the internet, I had to do a lot of guesswork. So that's why I was quite frustrated when I found out that Leanne, who used to tease me on the way home from school, because the boys were like, "Oh, Michael Flatley's a paedophile," because I wore a t-shirt, I had signed posters. I came into school on a non-uniform day and I wore my Michael Flatley. I even had the cutout. Bronya got me the cutout from W.H. Smith. I was like, oh, brilliant. And the boys would be like, oh, Michael Flatley's a paedophile because they were jealous because the boys fancied me, but they also bullied me. They were horrible, horrible boys. Some of them, the things my school, my peripatetic music teacher friend who's played at the Royal Music, she's played at the, was it the Royal Albert Hall, and she's played at the Eastbourne Town Hall. She's very talented. My Heather, the things she said about the boys in one of the boys in our class apparently murdered someone as an adult, and but it couldn't be proved that he was a murderer. There was another boy who she said raped a girl, and I'm not going to say the name of that boy because he actually called out to me the other day, and he's tried kissing me on the face, and I'm a rape victim. Yes, so I went to a school, and I knew him from primary school, by the way. The boy that apparently went on to do allegedly rape a girl, according to Heather. This is what I mean. This is the world we're living in. And he called out to me the other day, Bridie. I thought, oh my gosh, just pretend you haven't heard him. um, yeah, he looks a bit scary now, and I'm not going to describe what he looks like, but um, yeah, it's kind of weird when some of the thugs at Eastbourne Police are, yeah. But anyway, there was a lot of jealousy, uh, because Michael Flatley, he's a real man. He was, do you know what? I think at one time he may have even been one of the richest men in the world. But he was certainly extremely, he was my first kiss on the lips when I was 14. But in my opinion, he's one of the most talented men. If you've ever seen him play the flute, if you've seen, he was a stockbroker. He was also a boxer. He started dancing at 11. That's why when Mum came back from Ireland, I'd said to her when I was 15, I said, could you bring me back a pair of Irish dancing shoes just so I can tap and mess about in them? I'm never going to be on stage with Michael, but if I can just mess about and tap about and be in my own little world, that's good enough for me. You know, so long as I can have my fantasies and just dream about him and tap about. She never brought me back a pair of tapping shoes. I could still do that. I can still go and do that because we've got the I've got the internet now. So, but anyway, yeah. So, what was I saying? I was talking about the other day. I thought to myself, I know this is a weird thing to think, but I looked at Donald Trump and I thought he's got he's got an Irish look about him. He's got Michael Flatley's. There's something about his facial. I know he looks nothing like Michael Flatley, but it's the lips and the eyes. I thought there was something very Irish looking about him. And then I wondered, well, maybe who knows? Maybe they're possibly related. I mean, if Madonna can be related to one of the royals because of the bloodline thing, yeah, when they're all in the club, so to speak. Oh dear, it's a shame. It is a shame. Um, it has occurred to me that, I've never seen. I did actually. I've watched some of Michael's recent shows, and I'm like looking for the hand gestures, and I think I did see something. So he probably. I mean, who knows? I mean, the thing is, Michael was a self-made man. They say that Adamant was a self-made man. People said to him, "You can't do what you're doing," and he defied that. People said the same to Michael when he was an 11-year-old. They said, "Oh, he's really too old to start Irish dancing." They actually said that to him, and then he went on to become one of the best Irish dancers in the world. He was even in the Guinness Book of Records for the highest number of taps per minute, I think, something like that. But yeah. Anyway, so astrology, yeah. And Michael Flatley was born exactly 5 days after, what's his name? What's his name? Who played Oliver? His name is. It's my favourite musical. My mother was quite surprised to hear that. Oliver is my favourite musical. And Darren will tell you. Because I break out into song, but I have to be all the characters. I have to be Fagin, I have to be Dodge, I have to be. Um, but when I can emotionally relate to a character, I can, or I'm moved by a character, like I can't think of his name, who played Oliver. Jack Jack Wilde played um, the Artful Dodger, and I have a sort of emotional attachment to particularly Nancy and Oliver, and when you can, and also when you can pick little bits out, like my friend Leanne was reminded me a little bit of Dodger. Her surname was Rogers, so I used to call her Roger Dodger. I used to that to me was like a Grange Hill type nickname. Oi, Roger Dodger. Uh, and she took me under her wing because when I was 11 years old, when we moved to Seaford, she helped uh, me to cross the road on my own, and we go on the bus to Eastbourne and Brighton from Seaford by ourselves, and we go on the train as well, and it made me feel big because I'd never gone anywhere on my own without my mother. and it was good to have that independence. Um, and she was actually with me when I was sexually assaulted on Brighton Pier. She witnessed it. When I was 13, I was sexually assaulted and I was in tears. Some man came up. I was having trouble on the arcade, but because of something that happened to her, she handled it very, very well. My mother was impressed. But we were on our own at the time, and this Aussie police officer who worked for Brighton Police, just knee him in the groin. They weren't able to chase after the guy that did it, but Leanne was very good. She gave a full description of the guy that sexually assaulted me on Brighton Pier, and uh, but like I said, this is some years before I really started to. It was only after. Well, I must have, because I got someone convicted of attempted rape in 2011. That Lindsay DePaul video did must have stuck with me because I'd never actually practiced self-defense. Not really. So, but it's the easy part. She made it very easy, Lindsay DePaul. And when they simplify something that women need for self-defense, it makes it easier. But yeah, anyway, so I've just gone off on a massive tangent there. Um, so talking about an emotional attachment to characters, it's I love Oliver. It's very extremely it hits home, and it's similar to Little House on the Prairie for me in that sense. Because if there are parts of characters that you can take away, you know what I was saying about astrology, um, and you're not going to understand unless you've got to have quite a fairly good understanding of what astrology is, because a lot of people think they know and they don't. But like I said, that is where the danger is when you've got involved as I have with it from the age of 11 and 12. When I was into Anne Boleyn, and my two main interests at that time, apart from ABBA, when I was 11 and 12 years old, was Anne Boleyn and astrology. Astrology was, I bought all these books from the bargain bin in Safeway, which is now Morrison's. And yeah, and the thing is, this is where it all starts. It starts with curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat, and then it leads to other things, other rabbit holes, oh, I've got to have my birth chart done. Oh, what's this? What's that? The book of relationships, the book of birthdays. Oh, the day I was born, 16th of March, 1 plus 6 equals 7. 7 is the number that, has got um tarot. It's dangerous because it's got that significance, you see. But you see what I mean? You get drawn in, drawn in, drawn in. But it is real. It is real. Um, Now, Little House on the Prairie, um, Oliver, it has emotional um attached things, things about it. And sorry, I'm ready. I'm just doing this a bit. It
There isn't one episode of Little House on the Prairie that hasn't really, really had me in tears. Every single episode from all the series, every episode of all the series of Little House on the Prairie has had me in tears. It is that, and you know what? I've learnt something. I am no different to all the families, the adults and children of America who loved that show, who were also emotionally touched and wanted to believe that Michael Landon was exactly like Charles Ingalls. But I knew, before I knew what Karen Grassel said about him, I already knew because I sensed the spirit behind Michael. What do I mean by that? Well, put it this way. Last year, I didn't realise this till now. I've only just seen the footage. I didn't realise that there was a 50th anniversary of Little House on the Prairie last year, 1974. That's the year my middle sister was born. And it was in March of last year, which was shortly after, it was the same month last year when this evil landlady had attempted to illegally evict me. Now, I've just seen footage of the Sim Valley in California, the set of where they've done they did a 50th anniversary last year, and I watched it, and do you know what? I almost feel like I could have actually been there in a parallel universe. I feel like I would was there, but I wasn't there after watching it on YouTube. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? I don't mean that as literally as I'm saying it. Um, but seeing the hill where they in the first in the opening credits where Ma and Pa are on the wagon and the children run down the hill, that hill is so underwhelmingly nothing like what it was back then. It looks like in the original, like how it was 50 years ago, 51 years ago. It's a very, 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 very steep looking hill. Well, how it looks now, we've got Jackrabbit Hills way bigger than that right here. I mean, I walk down the street. I can walk out the door and you look at the downs, yeah, in the background. You could almost be in the Sim Valley of California, right here in Eastbourne, if you look at the downs. Bronya and I, me, Mum, and Bronya, we actually we actually went for a walk on the downs, not too far from you know, what would you call it? You know, the downs, not far from Friston Forest, and in between Friston Forest and Beachy Head, we've got big, big hills, bigger than probably the Chilterns in High Wycombe where I was born. Because when I get emotionally charged watching Little House on the Prairie because of the because um Mum's best friend Iris's husband Jack, who's they're in very poor health now. They're about 90. But Jack held me when I was a few days old. He said, "You've been here." By the way, they're both Scorpios. And there's a Iris, but you know what I was saying about generational. I've got to be careful what I say. Generational, but you know the spirit behind things. Iris, like Adamant, is a Romany gypsy. She's got Romany gypsy blood.
Her birthday is 6 days after Adamant's, and they're both born in the week of Scorpio too, which is the week of depth. I've never said that before because there are some things that I just didn't say to Mum and Iris. I never said, oh, Iris, your birthday is 6 days after Adamant's and you've both got Romany gypsy blood. You know, I was talking about spiritual things, about, you know. Anyway, I digress. I know that Jack is also a Scorpio. Now, Pisces and Scorpio, the two most compatible signs in the zodiac. Abiyahwa, please forgive me for saying this. Please keep that hedge of protection around me. This is a very dark time of year as it is, because we're coming into a very pagan, satanic Samhain. And I have to pray for my hedge of protection because it's not good to talk about these things. But basically, Prince Charles is a Scorpio 3, and so is Jack, and so is Ken, who was a farmer. And you know who else? Michael Landon. Michael Landon was born on Halloween. He's a Scorpio. I think that's week 1 of Scorpio. But he was born on Halloween. Yeah, and he played a farmer. Now, I have always had a connection to Scorpio men. And I feel almost ashamed to say this, and I'm openly admitting it. And may Abba Yahweh please forgive me for saying this because this is dark stuff. But you know the man that I worked with who was a Freemason at the garden centre who told my mother that he wanted to impregnate me when I was like 18 or 19 and he was in his 50s. He was older than my father. He was a Scorpio. Now Scorpios they are actually attracted to the occult. And astrology in itself is the occult. And Freemasonry is the occult. So it's one massive cesspit, if you like. Now, I never told that person, that Freemason, that I said I know a lot about astrology, and he went, "Oh yeah, what do you know about Scorpio?" And I said nothing because that's part of the mystery. That this is why women can be accused of witchcraft. Anne Boleyn was accused of being a witch. My grandmother's ancestor, Anne Boleyn, was accused of being a witch by her own husband. And you know what? Henry VIII, he was into so much darkness. Do you know what? He had an astrological chart. Yes, it's very shocking, isn't it? There he was making out that he was a follower of Christ. He had a personal astrologer and a chart, and he was a Cancerian man. Cancer, Scorpio, and my sign Pisces, they are the most compatible signs in the zodiac. And I know that Darren will absolutely hate me for saying this. But I was really glad when I found out that officially he is a Cancerian. So he's on the cusp and I'm close to the cusp. But officially we are water signs, which means we have, astrologically speaking, we have the most beautiful relationship in the zodiac, apart from me and Scorpio. Now, Michael Landon was very volatile on set. He was very intense, which is everything that, I mean, he was actually born in the week of intensity. Adamant was born in the week of depth. What week was I born in? I was born in the week of dancers and dreamers because that's what I am. So, you know, uh, I think with this identity crisis that clearly me and my middle sister are going through, because she is living as a man, there's me who we've always, it's like when mum's American friend Anne came over here, and by the way, I'll get onto her in a minute because she's a Piscean. She's a February Piscean. So is Karen Grassel, who played Michael Landon's on screen wife in Little House on the Prairie. So was the teacher, actually. February Pisces lady. You see, I'm very, very, very interested to know who's a Pisces lady because they're very, 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 very mysterious. And Pisces and Scorpio those two are particularly drawn to the occult and mystery stuff, right? Again, please, Abba Yahweh, please forgive me. Please keep that hedge of protection around me because I've come out of this. I've rebuked it. I'm not condoning, uh, I'm not encouraging anyone to take an interest in this, including myself. I'm not falling back into that. I'm just explaining the spirit behind things because Darren has got a friend called Patrick who's a Christian and he won't apparently he doesn't use the name of Yahweh. I'm only doing that because Darren brought me to his true name. But Patrick, um, he said to me, he too was into astrology and all of that, but he admitted himself, he said, it is real, it's just that it's evil because witches and warlocks have messed about with it. So it is real, but the father of lies, the enemy, Hashatan, that's his Hebrew name, that's the enemy's true Hebrew name, the enemy, the deceiver, who draws us into all these lies and deceptions. He mixes truth with lies, right? So when I'm watching Michael Langdon, now he is everything that I would need in a man because he knew what he was doing when he made Little House on the Prairie. He wanted to make a family based program with Christian values and traditional Christian family values, and you know that's what he embodied everything that's why me and all the families in America who loved the show in the 70s and even today. Apparently, the show is more loved today than it was in the 70s because they're playing it on TV in America, but I can't stream it here, which is really annoying because I need Little House on the Prairie. Every single episode from every season has made me cry, honestly. But he's like Michael Landon was playing uh his own version, not the real version of Charles Ingalls, because the real Charles Ingalls used to avoid paying for he used to run out of town when he was in debt, and he was a bit naughty like that. Whereas Michael Landon wanted to play the kind of man that you'd look at and you'd want him as a husband and a father. If you can look at a man and think, I want him as both my father and a husband, then he's embodying, and he's the head of the house, which is what scripture wants. You know, the woman has her place, the man his place, the children honor their parents. It's a beautiful, that is exactly that is how heaven on earth is going to be. Heaven is going to be a place on earth. The Shalmayim, no one can get It's impossible to get there. You have to become like little children again to get through the gates of the Shalmayim, which is a Hebrew word for heaven. Uh, we all know that Michael Landon was actually Jewish. His real name was Eugene Horowitz, was it? But anyway, um, if you knew the stuff that I knew about his mother, it's awful. His his mother. Oh, he used to wet the beds, and his mother would put the duvet outside so that everyone would go past and see it, and it was to humiliate him. And his mother used to, she attempted suicide so many times. She put her head in the oven. And one time, there's actually an episode of Highway to Heaven where he plays John Smith, and the angel, the earth angel, and he actually rescues a woman who walks into the sea. And in real life, he rescued his mother from drowning as a child, and it was awful. It made him throw up. So I think this has had an emotional impact on him. Clearly, he actually adopted some of his children, but it did not surprise me that talking about the spirit, and I'm not talking because he's a Scorpio man. He being volatile and intense, and flirting with women, in making inappropriate comments to the women on the, I would say, but I shouldn't say, he actually shares a birthday with Jimmy Savile, Halloween. And Jimmy Savile really was a practicing Satanist, though, so, and a wizard. So that's another part. That's the deep end of the occult, though, the really nasty satanic stuff, as opposed to just the lighter end, as it were. It's still, I mean, astrology is still evil because it's a deception, and it pulled me away from Yeshua. Yeshua is Yahweh. Shalom Shabbat Yahweh, by the way. Uh, Darren helped pull me out of all of this stuff. I was idolizing Adamant, aka Stuart Goddard, who worships Baphomet. I had my astrology, mugs, and my green man, and all this stuff. Now, and the thing that really, because Melissa Gilbert, I've said this before, Melissa Gilbert was came from an acting family. She and the little boy who played Willie, Olsen, and the actress who played Darlene in Roseanne, what it the three of them were adopted siblings. They were adopted by an acting parents who were Hollywood actors and actresses. But Michael Landon was also like, he actually said to Melissa Gilbert, I love you, do know I love you. And he was like a father to her. And she found it devastating when, as did everyone else, but it affected Melissa Gilbert when she found out that Michael Landon was having an affair with a makeup artist. It was like, Hollywood's, you know, it was a big thing because he's got children as well, and he adopted children as well, but he also had children with the makeup artist that he had an affair with. So but it was a massive blow to, it was a really devastating shock to everyone on the cast of who worked on Little House on the Prairie, because everyone was looking up to, he created Little House on the Prairie, but he smoked, he drank, and he was also a womanizer. And it's very upsetting to hear what Karen Gressel had to say, because not only did he end up treating her badly because she asked for a pay rise because they weren't paid very well, and it was also a man's world. She was also humiliated on set during an intimate scene. He talked about her intimate parts, and people were laughing at the the male production team, and she found it truly, truly humiliating because Karen Gressel, I think she was like her character, um, Caroline Ingalls, because she was quite naive and, you know, sensitive. She had to hold in all this pain and um, so she knew that one day she was going to sort of speak out about it, and it's sort of taken up until now for it all to come out. But then it's like, you know what I was I what you know what I was talking about, astrology and the spirit behind things. Well, you know that key ring that said the day I was born, 16th of March, I share a birthday with, what's his name? Oh, what's his name? Jerry Lewis. Now, Jerry Lewis was supposed to be. My mother moved to America in the 50s and 60s. Obviously, I've said about her illegal abortion in 1958. But she met a Hollywood actor that at the time she met. We've met loads of people when you think about it. But she had such an interesting life, and I said, "Oh, Mum, I share a birthday with Jerry Lewis." And she went, "Oh, no, not Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin." Oh, they were like, you know, silly man, silly. But I've since learned some very dark things about Jerry Lewis. Horrific. He abused, well, obviously this thing about he used to beat his sons, and he didn't leave them any inheritance. He abused his sons. He wasn't the funny man he made out he was. He was really quite an evil person, and really, really, according to other people's accounts, quite up his own arse. And like, do you know who I am, kind of thing, and thinking he can get his way into places for free and all that sort of thing. But I've seen women on they're elderly now. They're in their 80s and 90s, and they're like saying, "Oh, one woman was in tears, full of such anger." She's elderly now, and she was saying about how I think he raped her. This is Jerry Lewis, and he had a lock on his door where he could lock. But you hear these things, though. You hear, you like you hear about the casting couch thing. We know what happened to Marilyn Monroe. She was treated like a piece of meat, and she was an MK Ultra victim. The Aryan blonde programming, the blonde bombshell programming, beta sex kitten programming, and all of that. Um, but you also hear about Shirley Temple gave an account that reminded me. I could almost imagine me and my mother being like Shirley Temple and her mother. Shirley Temple, because me and we were, despite the age gap between me and my mother was a child in the 1940s. I was a child in the 80s and 90s. We were both touched up and exposed to as children. My mother talked about a time when she was on the Route Master bus, coming or going to school. And she said how she described this man getting his thing out. And she said his thing was all like disfigured and everything. She made it sound like a toadstool with warts. And she said, I said, oh, you poor thing. She said, yes, it's like he was trying to say, look, what do you think of this? Whereas some men just want to intimidate women, especially little girls, by going, woohoo, and I've had it happen to me many times. Um, and Iris's mother, Mrs. Rye, Iris is 3 years older than Mum. Mum would be 87 now. Iris would be 90. She talked about a time when she had a hand go up her. Oh no, that was another time. That was when she was a young woman. No, when Mum was a child, she had a man shout, "Show us your knickers! Go away!" And Mum was up in the tree with her friend, and her friend jumped out of the tree, and Mum was in this tree, like, and her friend ran to Mrs. Rye's house, and Mrs. Rye was like, "I'll go and sort out this dirty, not dirty old man. It was a young man." Um, but Shirley Temple talked about a time when she was about 9 or 10 years old, and a very, very rich and powerful Hollywood producer or whatever said to her, he had her in his room, and he did what happened to Mum on London Route Master in the 1940s as a child. He did to her what happened to Mum. He got his thing out. And bless her, Shirley Temple was so innocent that as a child, even I can imagine doing this. She started giggling, which is a normal child's reaction. And this and he was a dirty old man, quickly zipped himself up and said, "Get out." And Shirley Temple's mother, she said to her mother, "I've just been exposed to by this dirty old man, this producer, you know." And she said, her mother said, "Well, it's funny that, because I had exactly the same thing." So I can actually imagine Shirley Temple and her mother. That is exactly what my relationship with my mother was like. So there's catharsis here, from all of this. Um, I love talking about this stuff. I don't find it traumatic. I find it almost, in a weird sort of way, exciting, because I suppose because it hasn't bothered me in the way it should do. Because there are women out there that don't report sexual assault. There are so many rapes and sexual assaults that aren't being reported to police. Then you get the ones that are ignored. That's why I was actually quite surprised that the man that because it wasn't full on rape. I say I'm a rape victim. It was, I don't want to use the words. I don't even want to use the technical words because it's too graphic. It's still too graphic. But what I had was indecent assault. But indecent assault makes it sound like it's just a touch of the arse. No, it was a lot more serious. So serious that I had, visual injuries on my intimate areas that was shown to the, what do you call it? What do you call it? The jury, the people, what would you call the people in the court that see this stuff? I don't know, a bunch of strangers, but they were handed the photographs. I was behind a curtain. The judge was so nice. He actually kept, well, he should be, but he kept stopping to say, "Are you all right?" He was very nice. could do with this district judge being a bit more. I've heard that this district judge that told this landlady he could put her in prison, I've been told he's a good judge. So I don't know why he was funny off with me. He certainly wasn't like the judge at Hove Crown Court who told. Anyway, but anyway, I've totally diverted. I'm just enjoying all of it. I've been speaking for an hour and 45 bloody minutes. Um, I was actually just gonna make it an hour at the most, and I would have been done. But I've just gone off, and I still haven't said about. I've got emotional feelings about Little House on the Prairie because for many reasons. But I honestly, the hill that Bronya and I, when I back in the late 90s, I said to Mum, "Can we just run down this hill, pretend that we're the children from Little House on the Prairie? Can you take a picture?" So me and Bronya ran down the hill. It's a very, very steep hill, but the hill that was used that was originally used in the open credits for Little House on the Prairie when the children ran, it doesn't look like that now. It looks nothing like the hill that was originally used. It's really, it's just, it, I've seen bigger hills in people's gardens. That's why I find this I find it very strange that it's the same hill. But I love the fact that the twin girls were born 1 year and 6 days before my eldest sister. The little girl who played the youngest child, Carrie Ingalls, was born on the 25th of May 1970. My eldest sister was born on the 31st of May 1971. And according to Mum, my mother and father thought there was a time when my eldest sister was actually running down a hill and she fell like Carrie. I've seen the clip of the Cine film clip where Tanya's hand gets trapped in a horse's mouth and she's crying. She was only 2 years old. But yes, that was pre Little House on the Prairie. But no, I've just got this thing about. I think because there was a picture of Shire horses above the fireplace. This thing about being a farmer and the countryside, and you know, Iris's Jack held me when I was a few days old, and he said, "You've been here before, haven't you?" But you know what? I really do feel like I was a child of the 70s. You know, when you feel like you were there but you weren't there? And it's not just because I grew up watching 70s shows and because I had my sister's 70s toys passed on to me, as well as my own brand new toys. And I also think that when my mother was in America, she must have been, I probably shouldn't say this, but I think she must have been broody because I think she bought some toys before we were born in America because we had Fisher Price toys from the 1960s. Yes, I know because the toys that we had, I've looked them up online. I've seen them on YouTube and eBay. The same wind up toys and things. Um, and some of them are from the 1960s. And like I said, I like the teddy bear. Mum had a boyfriend give her a teddy bear back in the 60s, and it was a wind up toy, and it had a head that rolled around. Do you know what? We had so many antiques and things. I was walking back and I was thinking about when Grandma Currently, Grandma would be at 119 if she was alive. She had some medicine bottles that should be, even Mum said they could have been in a, she thought about giving them to a museum, these medicine bottles. Bronya and Tanya used to do this thing that I would have done. They used to like sniffing the medicine bottles because they had that old musty smell. But Mum was like, "How long, Mum, how long have you had these medicine bottles?" And do you know what? She said she'd had them for decades. These medicine bottles would be about 100 years old now. She'd had them since the 1920s, and Mum was like, "You can't keep these. These will be poisonous." So she had to get environmental health in to dispose of them. And she said that in hindsight, she could have actually given them to a museum because I've seen things a lot younger than that in museums. Even in recent times. I've said how even my mother used to say, walk around the museum with me as a child, and she'd say, "Oh, I remember that. Oh, a switchboard. Oh," and she actually demonstrated on this switchboard. I worked on one of these back in the 50s or 60s. You'd do this and you'd say, "Yes, do you want me to? I can, yes, I'll connect you to so and so." They had a switchboard in Little House on the Prairie, which is Victorian. And the telephone had only just been invented. My mother made herself look ancient. This is why I always believed in having an older mother, because it was so fascinating being a child, walking around a museum and having your own mother say, "Oh, I remember that. I had that as a child. I had that as a baby. I remember doing." Mrs. Olsen worked on uh, at the Mercantile. She had a switchboard. The telephone had just been invented. Alexander Graham Bell. He's another one who was born in the same week as me, because I studied astrology, didn't I? Um, yeah, so yeah, but I love the fact that the actress, one of the twins who played Carrie in Little House, her husband put the mannequins in the field for the tour, the 50th anniversary tour. And I'm like, I've put a comment in the video saying, can you actually go up to the mannequins? Can you go, can you run down the hill? Will they let you run down the hill? It's not a very big hill. I said it's nothing like the original hill. It's like, are you allowed to go up to the props? Because what happened was they blew up the original set in 1983 or 84. When it came to an end, because Michael didn't want the sets being used again by other people. But I'd like to go up to where the house was. I'd want to go up right up and you know. But to be perfectly honest, the Sim Valley in California, how it looks now, honestly, there are bigger hills here. It's not like how it looked in the original. Even with the mountains in the far background, it's supposed to be Minnesota, I think, but it's California, the Sim Valley. But even with the mountains in the far, far, far distance, the hills are not that big. Like I said, I've in High Wycombe, which is very hilly, and we've got massive trees here, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old, lush, lush countryside. I mean, we may not have tarantulas and coyotes, but having said that, I've seen lizards. Closest we get to a coyote was I had little fox cubs sniff my feet down at the what do you call it? Um, uh, what do you call it? Hollywell. This evening, I actually went right up to. I came very, very close to a fox. There were quite a few foxes. He was lying down and he had his ears up like this. And I snuck up to him. And I also saw a hedgehog coming back from the crumbles. And it was a young hedgehog. You know when they're young hedgehogs because they have a little bit of fur here. And I was going to pick him up, but I didn't want to trespass because where there are flats, you don't want to trespass. Um, like I said, since I've been with Darren, I've picked up so many hedgehogs on my travels, and yet there was a thing where they were saying, oh, global warming, they're going to become extinct by 2025. The British hedgehog will be gone. Well, that's funny because I've picked up loads of hedgehogs. And tonight I was going to pick up another one, but I didn't want to trespass. So, what's this? So I went to the new McDonald's at the Crumbles. It's quite a nice looking. This is supposed to be a Care Bear. I've started a little collection of a little family of things. I got this with a Happy Meal. Do you remember when the Happy Meal used to be? Was it 99p or 1.99? It's now 3.99. That's inflation. But I said to the man on the desk, I said, "Do you have the grumpy one? The one the because I said to him back in the 80s I had a Care Bear, the grumpy one, um because you collect these things, and I said I want the one that's got the picture of the is it a lightning bolt? He looks grumpy because, and I said the reason why is because in the 80s the Care Bear that I had, he was about that big. When I was 4 years old, no more than 4 years old. I think we got him in High Wycombe in 1986. Care Bears came out in 1984. And so I would have been no more than 4 years old. And I got this Care Bear. It's the smallest Care Bear that you could get. And he was blue and he had a face like that, grumpy. Well, my family must have picked him out for me because they all saw me like as a misery. But can you blame me? Because I was absorbing so much trauma in the family, a violent divorce. Yeah, there's a lot that's been swept under the carpet. But I wanted a big Care Bear because my eldest sister's friend, Samantha, who's 11 years older than me, but she had a Care Bear, that the big green one. I think it was green. It was big anyway. And I used to say to her, can you bring your Care Bear with you when you come and stay with Tanya? Can you bring him next? And so she used to bring him just for me because I said my blue Care Bear's too small and he's grumpy. He's got a grumpy face. He's got a picture of a rainy cloud on his tummy. Um, and then when I was about 8 years old, I lost him, and I made a poster. I said, and I drew a picture of the Care Bear saying, "I've lost this Care Bear. He's blue. He's got a red heart on his bottom." And I drew a diagram, and I drew a picture of him with a tear in his eye. If lost, if found, please let me know. I used to put a lot of weird notes on my door as well. I copied Bronya. I put a thing on my door saying, "Enter at your own peril." Another time I said, "Please sign the register before coming in." You see what I mean? I was very authentic. I had a folder with a pencil on a string, and I actually got my friend Elodie. She died a few years ago. Back in, I still don't know how she died. Bronya does. But I got Elodie to sign a register, and she took it seriously. She was out there for about an hour outside my bedroom, so filling in all her details. I'd say, "Before you come in my bedroom, I would like you to fill in some details, please." I was a funny child. Tanya actually told me as an adult that she said to my mother that one time I put a thing on my door saying, "Don't come in my room. If you come in my room, I'll chop off your head," or something. And she said, I said to Mum, "Mum, this girl needs help." And I thought, that doesn't sound like me. I don't remember writing anything like that. Although I did write some, I used to do some little attention seeking things, I put some funny notes on my door, um, you know, but I don't remember doing that. But anyway, yeah, so anyway, I'm going to go back to McDonald's and try and get the one with the grumpy one, because I said to the man, the that I said the one they've got that's the grumpy version. No, it doesn't look. These don't look anything like the 1980s Care Bears, and the only thing I don't like about the grumpy version of this is it's not like, as I said, it's not like the 80s one, and he's got fangs. But the thing is, they're doing, what they're doing without saying it. Yeah, Samhain. So Abiyahwa, anything you bring into your home, you have to be careful about what you bring into your home. I mean, even the rainbow, you know what I'm talking about, the rainbow. I have to pray over it, you see. I have to pray over it because I bought a toffee apple in Tesco. I've got to pray over that. Like I said last time, there's nothing new under the sun. They've been putting curses on Halloween treats for hundreds of years. Things might be a little bit different, but they're similar to what they were, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. So, what was I saying? So, I've got a little bit of a family going here because I started collecting the squishmallows as well. And you know how it is. You collect one or two, and then sometimes you think, "Oh, I've got to have the whole set." I only want the Care Bear that's got the. I can't be bothered to collect all these silly things. I'll just have the 80s Care Bear, the one that I had in the 80s, Grumpy. In the same way, I've got a Supergirl thing, because I see myself as Supergirl. Do you remember Supergirl that was released in 1984, with Faye Dunaway? Oh, they had a ghost train in that. Talking of ghost trains earlier. Um, and I didn't realise till some years ago that Howard Jones's song is playing in Supergirl. Howard Jones was a 80s pop star who lived in our town in High Wycombe, and my sister used to go and knock on his door. Howard Jones, the pop star. I was just a baby at the time. I didn't know anything. I was just all, dribble and, away with the fairies. But yes, so it is fascinating. In the same way, I didn't know that my father used to serve David Jason in the early 80s. I only learned that in some recent years. I didn't know till the end of my mother's life about her illegal abortion because she told me right at the very end. The other two knew this stuff. So there's a lot going on in my head right now, isn't there? Um, so where am I going to finish this rant? Um, I just want to say I did actually do a kind thing for someone. Uh, Without saying too much, because there are people selling, the squishmallows that come with the Happy Meals. That people are selling them for like £8 each or something. I sent. I'm gonna blow my own trumpet. I sent because I collected. Um, I ended up collecting them, and I ended up with ones that I didn't need. So I sent them to someone I've never met on Facebook with a drawing. I did a drawing of a badger, a hedgehog, a squirrel, an English squirrel, a red, not one of these in American invaders, not the grey squirrel, and a fox, a badger, a squirrel, a hedgehog, and in a cartoony way. And I said in my best handwriting, "Hope you collect all 15," and stuck some little things on it. And the woman that I sent them to wasn't expecting that, and she said, "It's so kind of you to do this. I'm going to show my daughter when she comes back, and my family are going to be so pleased that I've got these squishmallows. You're very clever." And I said this made me feel good because I said I'm going through hell. I didn't say what, but I've got a little family of a collection of and hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Oh no, no, that's not what they say. I've got three different monkeys, and we won from the pier, and yeah, I've like got a little family here, as it were, a little family. I didn't really want to share that because it's quite a personal thing. It's a silly thing, who did I see today? It's it's actually 5 o'clock in the morning, so I'm talking about Friday afternoon. Well, I went to a doctor's surgery. I've seen a doctor, told him what's going on. As I said, I've left no stone unturned, and guess what? He said the homeless people that we deal with, because I showed him everything. I showed him the email from the solicitor that says I have a legal aid certificate to commit the landlady to prison. I played him the recording of a criminal threatening to beat me senseless. I told him I'm going to go up to London and meet this politician because of the failings, and I went into a lot. I've said everything. I've said about my sisters, my partner, everything. And he said, I said, he said, we have some people who deal with mental health, uh, who deal with homelessness. He mentioned someone that I'd already seen years ago. I said, well, that's no good. And then he said a mental health nurse called Twiggy. And I knew that there was something that because when there's it was a double appointment, so I was there for about an hour, and it just flew by in just it felt like it had gone in a few minutes. That's how quickly an hour goes by when you've got too much to say. And he said, I've got another patient to see, you know. And then it's only when I've come back here that I've suddenly realised that Twiggy was the nurse who worked at SDR Living, which is the supported flat that I was locked out of on news that my father died. My sisters have illegally gone through my father's things without me. I still don't know how he died. I've been using his inheritance on the hotels. And she worked there, and this solicitor that I've shown him the email from this solicitor where he's saying that he could commit the landlady to prison. This bent solicitor, he was going to help me make a subsequent civil claim against the council. And this mental health nurse, I'd seen her at the time, so they're all in cahoots. So I'm going to the same people. Anyway, you can see why I needed to have a. Oh my gosh, I have been speaking for 2 hours. You see why I need to have this rant. Because I've got so much stress. Now you can see why people in my position don't survive this sort of thing unless they have got stories to tell, that unless they've had the life that I've had, where they're able to disassociate. And this is the point I'm making. So I've been talking for 2 hours, just rambling about all this stuff because you have to let off steam. So there we go. I've done that. It's all done and dusted. And Little House on the Prairie. Yeah. So I hope that I have at least made some sense to someone who's watching this. You know, it's not, you either understand astrology, the spirit behind it, or you don't, and the emotional attachments to things that I was just rambling about. But I say rambling, I mean these things. If I didn't have these things, then I would just go nuts because there'd be nowhere to escape, would there? You know, listening to the odd songs. I'm a human being, right? So I'm not AI. I'm real. So there we go. I'll swap that for the grumpy bear. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Do you remember Teddy Ruxpin? Teddy Ruxpin came out in 1984 when I was 2. I remember Teddy Ruxpin. I can still remember. I mean, I can't visualize it, but I am aware that I think I was in the buggy. If I wasn't in the buggy, then I was very small because I remember looking up at Teddy Ruxpin and W.H. Smith. This would have been in High Wycombe or wherever it was. I think it was W.H. Smith. And I want that. It's a talking teddy bear. The world's first talking teddy bear. I've looked at Teddy Ruxpin since then, and you know how things look more crap now than they did when you were 2 years old, when it was the world's first talking teddy bear. It's just a teddy bear that you put batteries in and a cassette tape, and he starts talking. He's a talking teddy bear. And there are people who used to do this thing. Do you remember the cricket doll? Kate and Rebecca had a cricket doll. Elodie had a cricket doll. Cricket came out in 1985. She was an American blue-eyed blonde-haired doll. She had pigtails, pigtails like this, and she had a mouth that and she was like that. And she talked like that. Her mouth opened, and you could even hear the animatronic. It was more like an animatronic than a doll, because if I was to hold the doll, even as an adult, she was heavy. You could feel the heaviness of the electrical, you know, she was heavy. But when something's heavy, you know it's well made. Whereas nowadays they're lighter and less effort goes in. And I'm talking about even with my dolls, which weren't only had one battery operated doll, and that was the baby Shivers. I remember Bronya screwing the head off to put the battery in, and I was like, ah, that's horrible. You're taking the head off to put the battery in. That's my baby. And it was more like, I, there's something I want to say, but I can't say because it's crude. Um, but it was more like, let's just say it was more like hugging a vibrating doll than a shivering baby. I could say something very rude and crude, but I'll leave it to the imagination. Um, and it made a whirring sound. It wasn't like a shivering baby. It was a vibrating doll. You had to take the head off. But Kate, that was the only battery. Kate wanted my. Talking of astrology, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I know that Kate's birthday is only about a day or two apart from Melissa Gilbert's birthday. And Kate and Rebecca really reminded, they liked Little House on the Prairie, so did I. And before I really got into Little House on the Prairie, they said to me, do you watch Little House on the Prairie? Do you know what I said to them? I remember saying this. Is it about a mouse? They must have thought I was nuts. I had a book called Little Mouse on the Prairie that was given to me for my third birthday, Sylvia in Canada. And it's a gorgeous story. It is actually just like Little House on the Prairie because the story has got a moral to it at the end. I told Darren all about it. I got all choked up telling him how these mice are messing around, and this good mouse is preparing for the winter and they're not. They're throwing snowballs at her and they're actually saying, I warned you. And she's got all prepared for the winter and they come in shivering. And oh, I get choked up. It's this mouse. She brings in these shivering mice and she's got a fireplace going and she's wrapped them up and she's keeping them warm. Because these mice have been messing around, they've been throwing snowballs at her and just been acting silly. And because they haven't prepared for the winter, they're all cold and starving hungry. And this mouse has got a fireplace. She's ready to hibernate. And it's called Little Mouse on the Prairie. And I got that book for my third birthday in 1985. And the other book I got was about floppy-eared rabbits and a possum, and they're so cute. So cute. They're so beautifully illustrated. And they're from Sylvia in Canada, my mum's friends. She was very artistic as well. She sent me a beautifully painted. Um, she painted a picture of a chipmunk, a cartoonish chipmunk, but it was beautifully painted. My mum and her, my mum was amazing as well though. she made me a little house on the prairie style doll that had a bonnet, and it was a Victorian. It was from Mother with Love. She did all the, she even made the booties, she made the petticoats and the bloomers, and it had a bonnet and two plaits either side, just like Melissa Gilbert. And there's a picture of me wearing a dress that Mum made, holding the Victorian doll that Mum made, sitting in the armchair by the piano. And I don't know what happened to that doll. A lot of things have gone missing. But I also asked her to make me an Edwardian dress. And it's just a shame it was a year after Grandma died, because it's the sort of dress Grandma would have worn. It was Edwardian, it had a pinafore. I said I wanted to look like Roberta in the Railway Children. And at that time, I didn't realise that they were Edwardian. I thought they were Victorian. You know how it is when you're a child, you get things wrong. But I had, and Mum and I love dolls. We had an Edwardian doll and a Victorian doll, original Edwardian Victorian doll. And I actually walked into town in New Haven with the Victorian doll's pram, with the Edwardian and the Victorian doll in it, wearing the beautiful dress that Mum made with the pinafore and the bloomers and everything. I proudly walked into town. It was the early 90s, so we were living in safer times than what we're living in now, which is ironic because I remember thinking, even at the time in the early 90s, I thought this is quite a daring thing to do because society is not as safe as it used to be. um, but I just, it was just so lovely. It was so lovely. New Haven is a rough town. The people, put it this way, if you've ever heard the Cockney accent, which doesn't actually exist, it's called what Mum calls London working class. My mother was a Londoner. You can be born within the sound of Bow Bells and be well spoken and still be a true Cockney, because a true Cockney is born within the sound of Bow Bells. But New Haven is a town with a port, and let me tell you something. My eldest sister went from a grammar school in Buckinghamshire to Tideway, and Tideway, she used to get into some serious fights. My mother said to her, "You've become like a fishwife," because she became so rough, because she was living away from home. She was drinking at 14, and she had to get away from my father because became violent. So with this middle class and this working class mishmash, this is where I've been discriminated against, because I'm very middle class on on my maternal side, but on my paternal side, we've got the working class element and the generational curses there. So because both my sisters became smokers, my father was a smoker. Me and my mother can't stand cigarettes. I've actually now got crippling OCD. I'm wiping my trainers with wet wipes. I have to do certain things. My skin is very sore again. If a cigarette comes anywhere near me, I can't stand it. I have to be away from people. Yeah. Now that a lot of this is trauma induced. But my eldest sister used to get into some very serious fight. Even Bronya said to me, "Bryony, you don't realise that Tanya and I used to draw blood on each other." This is my transgender sister who's living as a man. She was like, "You don't realise we used to draw blood on each other." and I had to hold Tanya down and run away from her. Get away! I, I, I'm aware, but I forget that before Tanya was kicked out at 16 in 1987, so because Bronya said with the old dial telephone, it was difficult to ring 999 because Tanya was slapping the phone out of her hands. She was hitting Tanya and she was hitting Mum and Bronya. I don't know where I was. Probably screaming and crying my head off because I was 5 years old. I don't remember it. But I know there were a lot of tears and a lot of trauma and blanks and a lot of, and of course some very weird things happened in our house. Bronya said she and Alison saw me when I wasn't there. I said, "Are you sure it wasn't one of my dolls?" "No, it was you drawing, colouring in." Mum had times where she had conversations with Bronya when she wasn't there. The local vicar down at that we had a church below our house and a churchyard, and the vicar, it was probably Elizabeth's father, because I used to go and play with Elizabeth. Her father was the vicar. I think he was the one who suggested Mum get some holy water and tell the spirits to get out, and all that stuff stopped happening. But everything I've been talking about, yeah, like Mum's brother had tarot cards that he tried to give Mum. Howard grew up with Rod and Kay, my biological maternal grandparents, and Kay used to read tea leaves, and it's not just a bit of fun, it's all very demonic. She saw that this woman was going to have a baby boy that would die, thinking it was just a bit of fun. Then it actually happened, and she was terrified, so she stopped doing that. That's why I've warned Bronya to stay away from whoever it is that she goes to see in Seaford who's advertising themselves with clairvoyancy, witchcraft, um, palmry, all this tarot, everything that's evil. Divination is divination. You shouldn't even be praying to saints because you're praying to dead people, which means you're praying to other entities. Anyway, that's me done. 2.5 hours of just just talking. Anyone who loves Little House on the Prairie, could you please, especially if you're living in America, could you please get them to make it available here in the UK because I can't get it. I can't set up a prescription thing subscription with Prime. I need to get it for free, and I can't. It's not available in the UK, which is ridiculous because the early settlers, well, I think the first early settlers were from, I think they were Dutch mostly, but actually they were from all over. It was very strange to see an episode of Little House on the Prairie where you got a northerner talking like that, A Little House on the Prairie is talking like that, he's talking like that. That's Scottish. No, is from up north. Is talking like talking northerner, regional accent. He's talking like that. He's talking about blowing things up. Yeah, it's just yeah. But then of course you also had the Irish um yeah, it was the 1970s. They like to really what's the word? Yeah, they seem to like can't think of the word. Stereotypes. That's it. Anyway, I think that's me done. I can't think of anything else to say. I've covered everything. I've gone 2.5 hours, and I'll say Shalom Shabbat Yahweh and keep praying for that hedge of protection. And I really don't know where this is going to go, but